Hey guys, guess what? Today's lab is all about legumes, and legumes, as you all know by now, are an amazing source of dietary protein for the human diet, right? And you'll remember the legume family in general is the second most of all important families for humanity when it comes to plants. So let's get into it. The most important legume in the world, you might remember from lecture, is, that's right, the soybean, right? And I'm going to talk a lot about soy products. By now you can see here I got a large variety of products that are, again, the most important legume in the world, and that is the soybean, because we get so many different products from them. Soybean oil, the typical American consumes about 23 liters of soybean oil a year. You're probably wondering, how is that possible? Here's how. Things like crackers commonly have soybean oil in them, so you might not even realize it as a major ingredient until you turn around and look at the back. Certainly things like your granola bar that's going to sustain you on the trail, same thing. These are known to have soy protein, again, because soybeans, as it turns out, are amongst the most, again, chock-laden filled with protein compared to other legumes. They are considered higher in the protein, actually, than any other legume. Certainly, the handy snack that you guys are probably familiar with, edamame. Oftentimes, you'll eat it directly out of the pod right here. This is another soy-containing product. All kinds of healthcare items do, so things like chapstick, the delicious soy sauce, maybe the ramen noodles you're going to eat for dinner. You get the idea here. Salad dressing and chocolate. They seem to have not much in common, but they all have soy ingredients. Soy lecithin is a common ingredient here found in chocolate bars, but soybean oil right here in a salad dressing, that helps us remind us that, oh yeah, soybean oil is undoubtedly a very important commodity in all kinds of products around the world. Now let's kind of ignore soy for a minute. Now that we know how important soy is, let's go to the number 2 legume in the world, and that's going to be the peanut. Peanuts are chock filled with heart-healthy fats, largely monounsaturated fats, as well as an awful lot of protein. And that's fine and dandy for all of us that are not deathly allergic to peanuts. The number 1 cause of anaphylactic shock through a dietary item is indeed the peanut. That's why people like me that have a different anaphylactic shock reaction have to carry one of these around so that they do not ever succumb to the ills of that reaction. We'll talk more about that in lecture. Well, here's the deal, folks. We're all very familiar with a lot of different peanut-containing products. Most of the peanuts in the United States go into making this product right here, peanut butter. However, a handful actually go into making candy, because as you all know, if you do like peanuts anyhow, you put peanut and chocolate together, it tastes pretty good, okay? So that's kind of a few examples here. But I've left out all the other legumes in the world. So we gotta go through this, guys. More and more times than not often these days, people love to have high protein items in their diet. Protein is an awesome way to help regulate our blood sugar, help us feel full. So a lot of products now spike protein in. And where does a lot of this protein magically come from? Whether it's the veggie burger you're eating, the Impossible burger, if you will, and maybe even things like pasta that are touting that they're high protein. You look at the ingredients on the back, and where is that coming from? A legume. Whether it's the pea protein in that Impossible burger, the delicious beans that were maybe in the black bean burger I ate last night for dinner, or options like these that you cook with. You might remember that I was a vegetarian for a long time. These made up all the awesome protein in my diet when I was a vegetarian, okay? So now that we understand that the legume family is chock filled with very, very nutritious protein, granted, is it a complete source of protein? Meaning, does it have all the essential amino acids? No. Every one of them lacks one or more essential amino acids or is not in the right portion of your body. Keep that in the back of your mind. No plant protein is indeed a complete protein. That's why we combine this with the grasses family from last week's lab. You combine the grain, you combine the legume in roughly 1 hour, or I'm sorry, 1 day period, and that's going to be a complete set of amino acids. That's why when I was a vegetarian, I never suffered from a protein deficiency disorder. So now that we understand a great source of wonderful proteins, also a great source of fat. So let's get back to the one that has more fat than any other legume, and that's the peanut. What we're going to do right now, folks, is we're going to dissect a dried out legume, and what better one than a peanut whose pericarp, the shell, is pushed beneath the ground after pollination. And certainly you have this awesome fruit which you can rip open. So remember, we call peanuts in the shell. That's a misnomer. Animals have shells, plants do not. So the technical term you might remember for the fruit, an ovary, is what again, guys? That's right, is the pericarp, okay? So I am ripping open the pericarp here. So now you know it's really supposed to be called peanuts in the pericarp, not peanuts in the shell. And as I grab each one of these individual seeds, I'm going to start right here removing the red papery substance off this. What might you muster is that red papery substance on the outside of the seed? Its protective layer, it's called the, aha, you got it, That's the seed coat, okay? So I'm getting rid of the seed coat. In fact, those of us that enjoy eating Spanish peanuts, they are deliberately sold with the seed coat still on, okay? So I've removed the amazing seed coat layer here to expose an entire seed. You might want to reference this in your lab manual. This entire seed together is one embryo. This embryo, because it's a dicot, then would have how many cotyledons? Remember, dicots have 2. And so as I open this wonderful embryo, you can see the 2 cotyledons right here. Okay, there's 1 and 2. Only the plot thickens dramatically. And I'm going to show you folks this really clearly. If you look inside of one of the cotyledons, you're going to see a little nub at the base. At the very top of that nub is a tiny, what appears to be, the most juvenile leaf imaginable. Yes, that is. This is the shoot system starting that I'm pointing out with my black pointer here. That is the shoot system, again, for this peanut if we did not roast it and then eat it first. The root system then is right at the base here, that nub that I'm touching with the black pointer. I'll touch it again this way here, folks. There you go. That is, again, our root system, and that is everything intimately in there, reminding ourselves that most of the embryo collectively is those 2 huge swollen cotyledons. So just to wrap up, the second most important legume in the United States as far as the different botanical portions, this is a nice reminder that your pericarp is indeed going to be what we, in layman's term, call the shell. That when you open that up, there's oftentimes 2, but sometimes 3 distinct individuals in there. These are each embryos, okay? That each one of these embryos then splits into 2 distinct cotyledons, right? And then if you look further, like we just said a second ago, you can see intimately in there the entire system that's developing for the next plant. Now, along the lines of realizing that the legume family gives us an abundance of useful fats and an abundance of useful proteins, it goes without saying, and I talked about this earlier, what was that most commonly consumed oil again in the United States? Soybean oil. Here's the deal though, it's not the most heart healthy of all oils. So one of the things we want to explore again when it comes to fats is a nice reminder about the different types of fats and that they're not all created equal. Saturated fats, guys, you might remember from lecture, they are said to be completely saturated with hydrogen. What does that mean specifically? It means there's no carbon-carbon double bonds. They're all single bonded carbon. And we'll review this concept at the end. I'm going to give you an example of a plant fat that's saturated, okay? An example of an animal fat that's saturated is something that I love, butter. But when it comes to a plant fat that's saturated, it's this. This is oil, folks. I know we don't usually think of oil as, oh yeah, it's a liquid substance. No, this is so hard I can literally tilt the spoon sideways and it's stuck there, okay? That's because it doesn't have what again, guys? No carbon double bonds whatsoever, okay? So this is an unusual thing for plants. Not many plants have an abundance of saturated fats, but coconut oil most certainly does. So let's get into it. This one would take a long time to dry if we want to lay these out all day and wait how long a specific volume, like an ounce, would take to dry. So let's get into it. Let's compare a couple other oils and their level of saturatedness versus unsaturatedness in the types of unsaturated fats. So things like olive oil are largely monounsaturated, and these are going to dry pretty quickly. These are a faster drying oil. Same thing here with avocado oil on this side. Avocado is another one of these largely monounsaturated fats. Now, a lot of you are wondering, what does Elise mean when she keeps saying monounsaturated? And I think this is a good point to review some key factors about fats that we've been talking about in lecture. So let's just get into what do I mean by saturated fat, mono, and poly. And here's the deal, guys. I think we need to get into it really quickly. The saturated fats, remember, folks, they expressly have carbon-carbon double bond, or single bonds rather, okay? So when you're looking down the fatty acid tail, that's all you see. All you see is all you get, okay? And these are all going to be completely saturated then with hydrogen, okay? There are going to be no double bonds throughout. So I think you guys kind of generally get the idea here. Monounsaturated fats, they're a little bit different. Why, you ask? Because you're actually going to see the prefix mono. What does that infer? You guys learned this earlier this semester, 1, right? So it's going to have, as you have a fatty acid chain, you're going to have it like this, and all of a sudden there's going to be a carbon double bond. So now it's no longer said to be fully saturated with hydrogen because of this one carbon double bond. Whereas poly, what's that mean again? Oh yeah, that's right. And I better lift this up so I can draw a little bit for you guys. That's actually going to mean 2 or more carbon double bonds, okay, down the fatty acid chain. So that makes them all different. It means this one's going to dry pretty quickly. And these ones are the heart healthiest. I'm going to put a star by that, okay? So let's just explore a couple examples then from this legume family now that we've covered the difference between the types of fats. And that is, we're going to look at these two oils right here, soybean oil and peanut oil. Okay, they're both from the Fabaceae, right? The difference is one of these is actually a lot better for us than the other one. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't aware of that. And the reason why I point that out is because Americans consume an awful lot of the soybean oil. Let's explore why this is less favorable. Let's go to the chart here, folks. If you look at soybean oil, what type of fat matches up best to the bar description? The pink. What do you see here? The pink is polyunsaturated, and unfortunately, the polyunsaturated fats actually take down our good cholesterol. We don't want good cholesterol levels ever going down. Let's explore the difference then with peanut. Peanut oil right next door here, you guys can see. If you look at the data from peanut oil, look at that. You have a lot of the monounsaturated fats. Those are actually heart healthier, okay? And these are going to dry faster. So these would be a faster drying oil, okay? Which again directly relates to the saturatedness of the oil. So again, peanut oil actually is a much heart healthier oil alternative over soybean oil. So why do you wonder, why do so many products, processed products, contain soybean oil then instead of peanut oil? Well, there's a couple obvious reasons. Number one, we are a global leading producer of soy products in the United States. So it makes more sense from the logistical standpoint. And number two, we have those allergy concerns with peanut oil. So it's not going to be the go-to oil for all sorts of different items that we're going to be using as either healthcare items or ingestion items. So let's just explore the difference between a couple other oils here in my lab. We're going to use the cheat sheet here, guys, to answer which one of these is healthier, olive oil or avocado oil. They're both extremely healthful cooking oils. Why? Because they're both, what's the type of fat that has only one carbon double bond? Monounsaturated, right? And here's the deal, check it out, folks. When you really want to compare the data at the end of the day, they're so similar here, olive and avocado oil, right? And again, with the olive oil and avocado oil not having stats run on this, they're quite similar. So I think it's safe to say they probably both tie for first place, although if you look really closely at the bar, probably the olive oil might win slightly in the monounsaturated category. But again, folks, this is a nice reminder of all the amazing products that we get from legumes. We just scratched the surface on them today. So yeah, get eating some legume snacks today. Lots of good protein and heart healthy fats.